Hi, I'm John Cranton with JimFeist.com. I'm going to take a look at the final stretch run here of the NBA season. Got some betting tips, plus we're going to take a look at each of the top teams and some of the bad teams in the Eastern and Western conferences. Some betting tips for the final stretch of the season. First, make sure you go to JimFeist.com. Jim has his NBA Game of the Year coming up, his specialty games of the year, 12-4-1 against the spread. That includes last Friday's NBA shocker game of the year. That was the Sacramento Kings, a home dog to Miami. They got the money. 12-4-1 record in his big NBA game of the month, game of the year. Overall game of the year is coming up. He also had a nice 1-0 start to baseball, hitting those Pittsburgh Pirates opening day. Plus, Jim is number 3 in the country on the Sports Watch Monitor in the NHL. So everything going very well right now. And you can check him out at JimFeist.com along with his Feist Fast Facts. Those are free stats right from Jim's personal database on the website. Okay, let's start off with the topic here. Do the NBA teams care coming down the stretch? Well, that depends on the teams, and it depends on the situation that they're in. The good teams, yeah, they want to secure playoff seeding, which means, yeah, they do want to win, but they also have to rest players, and that's something that coaches have a different background when it comes to resting players, and you really have to look at that, their history, such as Greg Popovich, who most definitely does it. And then you got Steve Kerr, who's a young coach, but he did that with Golden State last year, despite the fact that they were so dominant in winning the NBA title. And that's kind of a new trend with NBA coaching. Teams that are playing well down the stretch, good teams, have that playoff position secured. They will rest players, and that makes handicapping the final week of the NBA season very difficult. Then, of course, you got the teams that don't care at all. Now, in the Eastern Conference, boy, we got some really bad teams coming down the stretch. 76ers, Nets, have to throw the Bucks and the Knicks in there. These are teams that will not be in the postseason. Do they play hard? Are they interested in playing defense down the stretch? Well, with a team like the 76ers, keep in mind, terrible, undervalued, or I should say overvalued at home. 3-9 against the spread run right now at home. They can be such big dogs on the road that there can be some value, but at home, forget it. They have not been winning or covering games at home, and they've been very good to go against. And the Brooklyn Nets, too. Here's a team that just decided to rest Brook Lopez. They're shutting him down. They didn't have much talent anyway, even with him playing. And notice they're on an 0-7 spread run on the road. They clearly don't show up on the road. Now you got some of their best players being rested down the stretch. Can't imagine this team is going to be interested in playing hard over the next week. So just be careful about betting on them, unless you see some huge underdog numbers. But right now they have not been winning or covering games. And the New York Knicks, they've got offensive talent, but it's really been 2 guys who've been carrying the load, because overall their offensive numbers are terrible. They have been much improved better defensively this season. We noticed the Knicks are on a 24-7 run under the total. Wouldn't be surprised to see that continue down the stretch. Their emphasis on defense has been pretty good all year, but boy, this offense has not been very impressive. Now, the best teams, let's start off with the Eastern Conference. Kind of an unusual situation here is you really have 2 teams, Cleveland and Toronto, pretty much locked into the number 1 and 2 seeds. Cleveland in first place, and they got a 3.5 game lead over Toronto. Have to believe LeBron James is going to be either resting or his minutes cut down the stretch. You might as well over this last week to keep his knees fresh. Remember, he's in his early 30s, but he's been playing since he was 18 years of age and has had some injuries. So you have to believe they're going to rest him. And keep in mind, when that the Cleveland Cavaliers face a losing team, they're 11-23-2 against the spread, so vastly overvalued against losing teams, because really they know they can beat these teams just with the talent that they have, and they don't need to blow them out of the water. So they have been very bad against the spread anyway, against losing teams. Also, when they face those losing teams, there is less an emphasis on defense with the Cavaliers, 21-7 over the total when Cleveland faces a losing team. On the flip side, when Cleveland faces a winning team, 13-6-1 under the total. That's when that defense shows up. Then you got this number 2 seed, Toronto, currently 3.5 games behind Cleveland for the number 1 seed. Very unlikely that they will be able to overtake them for that top seed. And with that in mind, I wonder if they might start resting guys coming down the stretch, because when you look at the teams after them in the Eastern Conference, You got the Atlanta Hawks, Boston Celtics, Miami Heat, Charlotte. They're all 10 games roughly behind Cleveland for the number 1 seed. So they got no shot to catch the number 1 or even the number 2 seed. So Toronto was very secure with that number 2 seed. Nobody's really on their tails. With that said, those 4 teams, the Hawks, Celtics, Heat, and Charlotte, they're all battling for the number 3 and 4 seeds, which get that home court. So they're going to be teams that have plenty to play for down the stretch with playoff seedings. A couple of them are exceptional defensively. Miami and Boston, top 7 in the NBA in field goal shooting defense. Hawks, the Heat in particular, have been exceptionally strong defensively. Atlanta Hawks team has been winning and covering numbers, 13-6 spread run. And when they are playing at home, they're currently 7-3 under the total. So they bring that very good defense at home. And a Celtics team at home, very similar too. 13-5 run against the spread at home, Boston is, and they do play great defense at home, a 7-2 run under the total at home. All right, let's turn to the Western Conference. You really get the big 4 in the West. Start with the Warriors and the Spurs. The Warriors looking at a 69-8 record at this time. So what do? Do you rest Andrew Bogut? He's got the rib injury coming down the stretch. Well, sure, you want him rested for the postseason. The players this weekend, the coaching staff were talking about how the players are kind of mentally worn down, which isn't a big surprise after this long season with such a grueling pace and all the wins that they've racked up and all the talk they've had the last 2 months about going for the all-time record. So the talk has been, let's kind of take it easy. The record is kind of wearing on these guys. So I wouldn't be surprised to see Steve Kerr rest these guys at times, which is something he did a year ago when they had an exceptionally good season with the number 1 seed and ended up winning the title. With that said, got to be on the back of the minds of these players. We got a relatively easy schedule. We got a lot of home games. Let's go for it. So I can see them. I wouldn't be surprised to see them going hard in some of these games. Plus, they get 2 games left against the Spurs. That's going to be very interesting. One last thing about the Warriors. Haven't been covering games. They've been overvalued, 3-7-1 spread run. And when they face a losing team, they really don't run it up offensively as much as you might think. A 19-7-1 under the total against bad teams. Okay, finally the Spurs. If it wasn't for the run that Golden State has been on, the people would be talking about San Antonio as a monster season here, starting 64-12, but they're 4.5 games behind the Golden State Warriors. So really they're kind of locked into the number 2 seed, despite the fact they got 2 games remaining against Golden State. And they're a better team than they were last year and maybe even 2 years ago when they won the NBA title, because you got David West joining them, plus LaMarcus Aldridge with 18 points per game. They have finished up tops in the NBA in points allowed. They're an exceptionally strong defensive team, and they're top 8 in the NBA in scoring too, and they're number 2 at shooting the three-pointer, right behind these Golden State Warriors. So Greg Popovich has done a terrific job at limiting some of the playing time and the minutes on his big 3 in recent years, and he's likely to do that again over the last week of the season. The Spurs have won 50 games or more in an incredible 17 consecutive seasons. Yes, that is an NBA record. A couple of spread trends to keep in mind with San Antonio. After a loss, Spurs bounce back with a vengeance, 24-11 against the spread that next game. And the defense bounces back with a vengeance when they lose a game, 21-8-1 under the total after a defeat. Coming in third place, you get the Oklahoma City Thunder. Now, what are they going to do down the stretch? What are they going to do for the postseason? Certainly a very dangerous team when they got Westbrook and Durant clicking. These guys are just phenomenal talents. And don't forget Serge Ibaka, the year he had 12.7 points per game and almost 8 rebounds per game. Just a phenomenal trio with these guys for their first-year coach and Billy Donovan. Yes, their offense is a sensational number 3 in the NBA in scoring, but Donovan has gotten these guys to play exceptional defense. They're number 6 in the NBA in field goal shooting defense. That's how you win in the postseason. And keep in mind the the Oklahoma City Thunder, when they face a winning team, 17-7 under the total, they can bring great defense against these great teams. And we'll see a little bit of that down the stretch as well as in the postseason. Finally, you got the LA Clippers, fascinating team because they've got as good a talent as just about anybody stuck in this Western Conference. They haven't had much of Blake Griffin. Now he's coming back slowly working his way in. So you get him with all the depth and talent that they have. They're going to be an interesting team. Nobody really wants to play them. Even without Griffin playing, half the season, they still finished up top 10 in the NBA in scoring and points allowed. So they're just not a great offensive team. They can beat you with defense. A couple of spots to keep in mind when they face a team with a winning percentage below 40%. When the Clippers face a bad team, boy, their defense is tremendous. 37, 17, and 2 under the total when they face those bad teams. One weak spot to keep in mind with the LA Clippers, free throw shooting is terrible. Once again, this has been a weakness the last couple of years, what has hurt them in the postseason, and they haven't improved. They're 28th in the NBA at free throw shooting. I wouldn't be surprised if that hurts them in the postseason, as talented as they are, but they certainly have the talent to beat anybody in any kind of a playoff series. So that's what we're going to see coming down the stretch with some of these teams. Also coming down the stretch, Jim Feist is going to have that NBA game of the year, his overall game of the year, and with his specialty games of the year, a sizzling 12-4-1 on the NBA season, including last Friday's win with the Sacramento Kings, a home underdog of +7. That was NBA shocker game of the year. They got the money in a close game all the way. He is off to a nice start in baseball, plus number 3 on the Sports Monitor in NHL plays. Everything has been clicking. You can find those plays and more at jimfeist.com. All right, that'll do it for the NBA version. We'll see you next week with another version of the NBA version of Proline. Good luck with the games, everyone, and we'll see you.